At me. Okay, so look, thank you for joining me. We have 8 classes: Introduction to HCI, Human Computer Interaction, how people use computers and engage with them, and UX Design, User Experience. Okay, so I will tear into it. And remember, all these slides, we provide them afterwards. You'll be able to grab them through the college. Okay, we'll start with a kind of a basic definition of user experience, right? So I'll go through the slides and I'll highlight parts as we progress. And any questions, please just ping me. So UX, or user experience, right, is about designing high quality interactive systems, products, and services. But they have to fit in with what people want and how people live. And today, computing and communication technologies, they're built into everyday items. So the things you'll find at home, your televisions, your washing machines, the ticket machine when you're using public transport, all those have interfaces so that they need a way that you can interact with the device. Um, and somebody has to design them. It's usually a UX designer. So you'll find those type of interactive components, you find them in museums, exhibitions, libraries, and people now, we wear technology, we wear smart watches, we carry phones with us, all those type of things. And these devices that we carry with us today are far more powerful than any computers we had in the past. Can anyone remember the law we looked at, the computing law in the last class? The computing law, that Moore's law, very good. Well done, Sue. Yeah, I hadn't even typed in computing law. Well done, you. Yeah. And Moore's law dictates, let me just pop it in here. So it dictates that as time goes on, let me see, we'll find a good example. Yeah, as we progress, the amount of just transistors in chips, and this is quite a good one. Pop this here. So along the bottom, you have time, and up the top, you have the transistors, or the components in a chip. And the more you can fit in, the more power the chip is going to have. So back here in the 1970s, you can see it was around 1,000. If you go right up to here to modern computing systems, you're up to this huge number. So this is sort of Moore's law, and we're on that sort of path now. So all that means is we have access to computing. It's ubiquitous, and that's a word we'll come across soon. It just means it's all around us, and it's part of our everyday lives. So user experience is involved in creating websites, online communities, mobile apps, all these interactive tools, and start thinking about this word interaction, this back and forth between the computer. One of the things we looked at in the last course was the information processing cycle, where you have input, processing, and output. So when I'm using my computer, I'm giving it command signals, and it's giving me feedback from the interface I'm using in the form of things I can see on the screen, sounds, those type of things. And all these things need to be thought about carefully. And the reason is it's so people can use them easily and effectively. And across this morning's lecture, we'll introduce the wide scope of UX. And after going through today, we'll understand the main ideas behind UX, explain why human-centered design is important, have a look at how UX has developed over time, and identify the knowledge and skills used in UX design. So let's proceed. So the variety of UX, there's a huge variety. If you think of all the different devices you use, generally well, in a rough sense, you know, devices with screens, but also other devices, because you could have like a car needs a kind of a user experience. You could have physical buttons in the car, but you could also have digital displays. A microwave, um, a washing machine. All these devices need interfaces that so that people can use them. You know, these control panels that we all use. So UX is about how people interact with digital systems, including websites, apps, games, devices. And the focus of UX is to make those systems easier and more enjoyable to use. UX design is used in everyday tools, home heating systems, digital cameras, tablets, apps, and each one must respond smoothly to what the user needs. So you'll see some very good examples of UX design. You'll see some very bad examples of UX design as well. So, and designers also work in environments where multiple devices are used together. So you could have the example, a smart home or retail space that could have interactive screens and tablets. And these systems require systems to communicate and to cooperate. So we're getting in now into what they call interoperability. Does anyone know what that word means? Interoperability. Have you heard that word before? So if you have a bunch of devices, right, in your home, you need them to all work together. But the problem is one manufacturer could have made your control panel, one manufacturer could have made your, radiators, one manufacturer could have made your, hot water system, all that kind of stuff. So for it to be a smart system, everything needs to work together. A little bit like, and we'll look at this in a minute, where you might have, say, devices in the Apple ecosystem. And one of the things there is they work very well together. So it's very easy to ping a file from an iPhone to an iMac or onto an iPad, and you have this cloud storage that sort of links everything together, iCloud on Apple. So all that gives good interoperability where everything works together. So operable means, I suppose, to work. So designers also work on environments where several devices are used. Yes, we've covered that. And UX is not limited to personal gadgets. It also supports work tasks, house routines, community-based services, but in all cases, the goal is to make the entire user experience feel natural, feel effective, so that the user can feel like they're using the system properly or that it's responding properly. So some examples: the iPhone. So who's this guy down in the bottom right?
Steve
Anyone know who
Steve
Jobs.
Jobs. Yeah.
Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs, yeah, and we looked at Steve Jobs the last day. So Apple launched the iPhone in 2007. It introduced a carefully designed touchscreen that made using the finger for input and replacing buttons and styluses. So up until then, you had, I'm sure you've all seen button phones, haven't you? So this was the kind of the not BlackBerry. This was the sort of business phone up until that point. Okay, so different in that you had these physical sort of buttons that you pushed. So there were a couple of different smartphones all launched around the same time, but Apple did a really good job of making sure that it worked properly. And part of the reason was the device felt very intuitive to use. So intuitive is a really good word because it means that something you can use something without a ton of learning involved. So have you heard the word intuitive before? Intuitive. So if something's easy to use, right? So things like these multi-touch gestures, you know, the gesture you do on the iPhone or on a smartphone, and you pinch and then you can zoom in and zoom out. And it just seems to make kind of physical sense as well. And this way of interacting, then it became sort of standard across other devices. And generally, the more natural the movement, the more intuitive it is, or you feel like you already know how to do it. And I've actually seen, very young children, and when they use an iPad or they use a smartphone, they sort of seem already to know how to do it. So it's in somehow connected to, that physical knowledge that we all have. But the iPhone, it had sensors that could detect its position. It could tell if it was being held up in portrait, in landscape, at an angle, and the screen would switch between portrait and landscape views. So, and we sort of take that for granted now, but at the time, it's quite revolutionary. So, and then to pull it all together in 2008, Apple launched the App Store. And this is a platform that allowed outside developers to create apps for the iPhone. And then the app ecosystem took off, everything from games, productivity trackers, all types of applications. And it was actually this combination of the App Store and the iTunes delivery service. It turned the iPhone into a multimedia device, and it set the foundation for app-based systems that are now common across other ecosystems: Apple, Android, Windows. Everyone has their own app store now, and it's a platform. Styluses are the digital pens. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so you can use a stylus. So I have a stylus on the end of this pen. I don't know if you can see that. So it's just a normal pen, and then I can turn it around and I can press on my but there are much more advanced ones than these. You can say these. My son does a lot of art, so he has one of these type of things. So they're much smarter. You charge it up, and it's designed to work with something like a tablet, an iPad. He uses it for his art and drawing and stuff. So, okay, so any questions? Keep going. So, example, good UX and good. Yeah, so well, I suppose following on from that, voice UX. So you all understand that now. Um, but again, Apple were one of the first people to do it. They introduced Siri, and Siri allowed users to make phone calls, send messages, schedule appointments, all that type of things. You had versions from other companies, from Google, from Microsoft, but the point was the mode of interaction changed because now you could control something using your voice as opposed to having to use a mouse or, your hands. So very good for accessibility as well. So if somebody, might have limited use of their arms or hands because of a disability or an injury, then it meant that they could interact with the device and they could just do that using voice alone. And voice interaction is a part of UX, and it offers a way for people to control devices when they want to access the information. So this will get bigger and bigger as we progress. Like have you seen the AI pins that they're creating now? AI pin. So it's basically a device, and it just clips on here. See this kind of thing? So it clips on almost like a badge, and it's got a camera on it, and it's got AI that runs inside it. And when you ask it a question, it can see what you can see because of the camera, and it'll sort of talk to you. But the main mode of interaction there is by voice. Now there is a kind of a projection mechanism as well where it can shine something and you can catch it on your hand. Um, but these types of devices are going to get more popular over the coming years, especially with the I suppose expansion of AI. So voice UX, big thing. So next slide, back to I suppose these ecosystems, and they either worked well together or they don't. So and when devices are made by different companies, sometimes they don't work well together. Sometimes they do. So here's an example of this Apple ecosystem. You've got one account. You've got your Apple ID. You've got one storage platform. You've got your iCloud. But all these devices then all hang from this. So has anyone got an example of another platform like this? I'm sure you have them for your phones, and I suppose the Google platform will be another example where you have your Gmail account and that powers your Android devices and your Samsung device, that kind of thing. But where it can get tricky, and again, we're back to that word now, interoperability, is when you try and get multiple devices from different manufacturers all to work together. So your Apple Watch, your Windows computer, your Android phone. And for us as users, we just want them to work so we can do what we want to do. But they can struggle to see each other, even over basic connections like Bluetooth and stuff. And poor experience between devices can lead to a frustrating, I'm going to say user experience. And when tools fail to cooperate, users feel annoyed, confused, unable to complete tasks. And there's nothing as frustrating as you're trying to do a very basic thing, and the devices and the system as a whole won't allow you. But really, UX designers should plan for these situations, and they need to think maybe about how people are likely to use more than one device and how these systems can work reliably. And remember that word that I put into the chat, because that is important. So I'll just right, so proceed. So any questions? No? Hmm. Comments, observations? No, all good. Examples, lots of UX. You see it now a lot more in retail. So Burberry. So Burberry, you've heard of Burberry, have you? The brand? Burberry is a high-end fashion brand, and what they've started doing is they're embedding tags into their clothes. So when you go in, you can scan it with your phone. It's just a simple RFID tag. So you go in, you scan it, and then it might play a video, or it gives you sort of context or background um, on the code. They also have big sort of screens in their stores now, and as you walk past them, different things happen. And their store in Regent Street, London, shows how UX can be designed for physical spaces. And the building includes wireless internet, large displays, and hidden technologies. RFID stands for radio frequency identification. So these are tiny chips inside clothing, and they trigger digital content when brought near a screen or scanner. So a customer might see a fashion show video or view a garment in different colors on a nearby screen. So quite clever. Some mirrors in the store also switch into screens, and they show what a customer would look like wearing the different items. So there may be that sort of augmented sort of reality, where you're standing in front of a mirror, but you're actually viewing yourselves wearing different clothes. And staff use iPads to check shopping history, make suggestions, all those things. UX also shapes toys. So RoboQ is a toy robot. Let's have a look at RoboQ. RoboQ, I don't remember RoboQ. Yeah, so RoboQ, the world's smallest robot. It needs to be this type of thing, and you can probably program it. So RoboQ is a toy robot that uses sensor, sound, and motion to respond to the child's play. These technologies can create more exciting, responsive interactions. And on the internet, then you've platforms like social media platforms. They let people message friends, post updates, post stories, all that type of things. And these systems rely on UX to help people connect and share content easily. So at some stage, even though these are all very different, right? You have your three examples, in the Burberry store, the toy robot, and then social media. Someone has had to sit down and try and figure out the interaction and how to make it special and how to make it functional so that when the user, tries to play with the device or the user visits the store, it makes sense and it works. So, okay, so a quick activity. So I want you guys, and we're going to give you a minute or so to think about this. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of an interactive system or service that you've used recently. This could include a smartphone app, a home device like a smart speaker, a video game. In your head, try and describe what works well and what feels frustrating. Focus on how it behaves overall and not just what it does. So not so much about function, more about feeling, right? So ask yourself, is the system fun? Is it efficient? Does it work well? Or is it confusing, right? Does it behave the way you expect, right? So I want you to share your comments and we'll discuss them. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. I just want to quickly use sorry, I just want to quickly use the toilet. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about that, and then I'll come back. So, and then we can either chat about it or you can post your comments in the chat. Yeah. So who would like to go first? So think of a system that you've used. So anyone got any suggestions or ideas? So it could be an app, it could be a smart speaker, it could be a video game, it could be a touch screen device, it could be a washing machine, a microwave, right? So does it work the way you expect it to?
I can go first.
Lovely. Thank you, Zurich.
Yeah.
What example can you give?
The system that I've been using recently it's a website. It's called
Mm,
Kaggle, and I've
yeah,
been using it to learn how to code. So it's very
yeah,
introductory.
yeah,
And it works well because everything is split into bite-sized lessons.
yeah,
And it's there's pretty much no learning process because the way they've structured their lessons is you read a bit and then you code a
yeah,
bit. You read a bit and then
yeah,
you code in different chapters. So in that
yeah,
sense, it's a very intuitive system. But
yeah.
I guess the only issue with bite-sized lessons is that they lack a bit of depth sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, excellent. Okay, yeah, look, really, really good example. And you can see from the website that, and I've used this, I've used this website as well, and it is very good, and it is very well thought out, and You can even see the design of this. See the way it's lovely. It's kind of nice and simple, and it's very easy to see where things are. You have the competitions. So these are probably the courses that you've been doing, are they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see how, look, intuitive this is here. And even little things like, so watch what happened with the menus, right? So see the way the menus are on top, right? And now, as soon as I go into the courses, the menus jump to the side. See the way that worked? And it just happened automatically. So somebody has sort of designed that and somebody's thought about that. And they say, well, we want to give the people a list and we want a search bar over the top. So now we need to make space for that. So we'll move our menu to the left. So they've had a meeting on that and somebody has sat down and said, right, let's do this. And like, yeah, I would agree to you. It's a nice looking website and they're using, see this iconography. So these pictures that mean something, and you can actually see they're even using categories through the use of color. See this? See the way some are blue, some are yellow. I don't know what that means, but I bet there's a differentiation there. And I can also sort them in different ways. See the way I've got a couple of different options? So one of these you would imagine would work better, something like this on a phone because it's a scrollable list. But if I'm on a desktop, it jumps to this. Because if I had something like this on a small phone, it wouldn't work so well, would it? So no, I would agree with you. Okay, really good example. Thank you for sharing that. And it's lovely to use a system when you come across it and you go, hang on, this really works. So it really helps you as a user. So would anyone else have an example, guys? And so again, so a parking meter. Oh, yes. Yes. I struggle with meters. It had a bad UX because it was inconsistent, yeah, to respond. Yeah, no, completely. There a lot of the ticket machines I think we have in Ireland, that can be just super frustrating. There is one, let me show you a picture of it. You have to key in details. So this is for the public sort of transport system, right? And you have to kind of key in details on this interface, these type of things, or you might have to enter like a car registration, but there is a delay. So after you press the button, nothing happens, and it can be super frustrating. And you have to select your route and go from here to here, but you press the button and there's a lag and it's really annoying. So is that something like you were thinking about, Bailey? A parking meter? Was it a digital parking meter? Let's have a look at the interface. This kind of a thing. Yeah, yeah. A lot of these machines can be pretty frustrating to use. So that would be an example of a system that hasn't fully been, the design of the system hasn't really been prioritized. So it adds a lot of frustration to the users. And the thing I was talking about in terms of the lag in the system, so that would be the responsiveness of the system. So if a system isn't responsive, it can be just so frustrating. So a non-responsive system will be, if I click on this square here and nothing happens, and then I click again, and now I've clicked twice in, 3 seconds, and something else happens then. So, okay, good example, Bailey. Thank you for sharing that. So the system doesn't behave in the way you expect, and it can be just, the opposite to the first system we looked at, the Kaggle, right? So let's look at some more examples. Sue, so grab app to book a ride. It's easy to use, efficient and simple icons. Yeah, and the app loads fast and shows real-time driver updates. Something like Uber or one of those sort of taxi services, is it? But when the internet can be slow, it can be frustrating. Yeah, yeah. So it gives you, okay. Again, we're back to kind of the responsiveness of the system and how quick it sort of updates the user. Okay, another good example, an app, the Pinterest app, the system really enjoyable, allows some creativity and inspirations. Yeah. Um, okay, very good. A nice clicking sound when clicking save buttons. And sometimes it's really nice to get that feedback. I know my phone, it gives me haptic alerts, right? So when I do certain things on my phone, like say I'm on the Amazon app and I want to, or I add a product to my cart, it gives me a little buzz. So it lets me know, and that's the feedback that the system is giving to the user to say something is that's a success. And it's just, it gives me guidance or it gives me confirmation. So maybe it's a little bit like when you get that click on Pinterest when you hit the save button. Okay, so there seems to be lots of good features on the Pinterest app. So they've obviously spent some time designing it. And then the next example, a smart speaker, where it enables a voice change. It works well, but the downside is the volume is quite low. Good. And again, a different type of experience because you're working with it in a different mode. So you're working via voice. So you're not physically pressing the thing. So somebody would have had to sit down and work out what are all the steps that the user is going to take and the type of commands that they're going to give. And then the system needs to be able to accommodate those. And then Abdullah, sorry, an example, Spotify, you listen to music, it's fast, ad-free, and the sound is good, and you can listen to sound. So you've got loads of convenient features or features that are, um, friendly to the user. The layout is clean and easy to use. I would agree. I use a couple of apps. For music, I find the Apple Music app a little bit more confusing, and I find Spotify is just nice and clean. What I also like is when I use it in the car, it changes the display to a sort of simplified version. So it turns into this. Have you seen that? So and it knows. So when you think about it, that's quite clever, right? Because it gives me this just enough information so that I can look at it, I can glance at it quickly when I'm driving. So the phone connects to Bluetooth, right? And it gets a ping back from the car. Now the app knows that it's connected in a car, so it switches into car mode. So like that's really convenient for the user. But somebody, and this is what UX design is about. How do we give things to the user that it just supports a pleasurable interaction experience? So good example, yeah, around the Spotify app. And then the last example we'll look at before we move on, Daniel, the TikTok app, it's easy loads. Yeah, brilliant design. Actually sort of revolutionized that quick form sort of video content where you just scroll, next. Yeah. So overall, it's fun and it works the way I expect it to. Yeah, kind of similar to the feature on Instagram where you're watching the videos and you sort of just go next. Yeah. So they've sat down and look those sort of features and that quick form short video content has revolutionized how we serve social media. So all really good examples, guys. Well done. So what do UX designers do? So some designers focus on hardware and software. In these cases, the work is often called product design. So that would be the combination. And others design only the software or digital services, such as apps or websites. This is called system design or simply user experience design. And sometimes designers build connected systems that work across multiple devices. Again, back to this interoperability we mentioned. And this kind of work is called service design. And although the type of work may vary, the core concerns of UX design remain the same. So understanding the design itself, the technologies used, the people involved, and the activities and settings where the interaction will take place. So all those are really important components. And you can see this is a UX designer. Can you see what he's doing here? He's building out what they call a wireframe. So Um, so a wireframe is it's where you make a sort of a basic kind of diagram of what might be happening on a screen or on a phone, and you try and figure out all the steps. And you do that before you build out your full application. Sometimes you do it here, you do it on a piece of paper. You can use post-its to do it. You move them around and you say, would it be better for the user for this part to be here, this part to be here? And that's part of the work of the UX designer. They try and figure all that stuff out, and you do that, I suppose, in advance of, really coding the app or the interface. So, okay, moving on. But let's look at the concept of design and what it actually means. So design means creating something new and planning how it will work. And this could include early sketches, layouts, colors, structures, and lots of different versions of things. Because, like with design, there's always this element of experimentation because you don't really know. And one of the things you do in UX is you test your designs, you build something, you get people to use it, and then you get feedback on their thoughts, and then your design changes. So designers rarely get things right on the first try, and good design involves trying things out, reviewing, making changes. And this process is called iteration. I think we use that word a couple of times in the last course, where we would have those cycles that go around and around. That's iteration. So when something repeats in a loop. Now, there are different types of design. So engineering design, it would be very precise. It uses maths and science. Artistic design uses creativity, new ideas. And in between design is craft. And that craft uses a form, I suppose, logic and creativity. But in UX, design involves working with digital materials like screens, systems, and services. And there's a famous quote from this guy, and he described design as a conversation with materials, um, meaning that designers must understand how their tools behave. So UX is always human-centered. So the person or the user is always at the in the center of the process. So UX, it's not just about making something that works. It's about something making that works for people. So super important because you can build something, it can be functional, it can be work, but it can be, like the parking meters or it can be just frustrating to use. And good design means, designing to match human goals, habits, ways of thinking. And being human-centered means thinking about what people want to do rather than focusing only on what the technology can do. It also means connecting people, not just connecting devices. And UX should support human communication as well as this human-machine interaction. So good UX involves people in the design process. The designers ask for feedback, test early versions, and adjust the design to suit different users. And UX should include everyone. And this is called designing for diversity. So also, accessibility. And it means considering people with different backgrounds, ages, languages, and abilities. So an example there, you could have an app that only works in one language. Like straight away you've alienated, half the world's population. So say you were an online course provider. If you could provide your courses in, 5, 6 languages, you would cover an awful lot more people if your courses were only available in English. So in terms of accessibility there, the language can be, it can either be a gateway or else it can be a barrier. Understanding people and technology. So you know who this guy is? Anyone know that movie? Who's this guy? Yeah, so you probably do. So it's Tom Cruise. Do you know Tom Cruise, the actor? And the movie is Minority Report. So, and the reason I included that was because of because there was a very cool user interface in Minority Report. Has anyone seen this movie? The way he gets to go in and he's working with the computer screen, using his hands, using these sort of gloves, and he can move images around and all those type of things. And there's voice control. So really cool example of a very futuristic interface. And UX designers work with interactive systems. So these are technologies that respond to user input. Examples could include apps, websites, voice assistants, digital maps, and interactive systems. You're always dealing with content. So content means the text, the video, the sounds, the images, the animations. So, and the system stores, it shows, or reacts to this content when somebody interacts with it. These type of systems are everywhere. They include parcel tracking apps, tourist guides, digital tools in public spaces, like the parking meter. And devices are becoming more connected. This is called IoT. So we looked at that previously in the other course, where you would have sensors in your home that can gather data and change heating or lighting automatically. You walk into a room, the lights come on, the temperature drops below a certain amount of degrees, the heating system comes on. So UX design must consider how people use multiple devices at once, back to interoperability again, and across different settings, different platforms, not just one tool, one interaction at a time. You're always designing for the complete user experience. You have different views of, different schools of thought. US designers take a people-centered view, right? So let's just dig in a little bit as to the two different views. So over here, you have the people-centered view, and this is the machine-centered view. And these are all the things that people can be and machines can be. So let's go through them. So UX designers take a people-centered view, which sees users as creative, flexible, and capable of solving problems. Some older systems take a machine-centered view, which treats people as vague, disorganized, or error-prone. And these systems expect people to adapt to the machine instead of the other way around. So, example, me going to the parking meter, and I'm having to adapt what I'm doing, and as opposed to the system accommodating my need. So machines are consistent and logical, but they lack understanding. So people, by contrast, use goals and feelings to guide actions. And UX design aims to bridge the gap between how machines work and how people think, using interfaces that support human needs. So you do these two sort of things. You've got this human world, or this people-centered versus machine-centered, and this kind of this back and forth at all times. And one of the compelling things about AI is that it's sort of, you're dealing with a technology, but it feels more like a kind of a person than maybe just a flat computer interaction. So which makes it more compelling. So the user interface, and this is the part that you interact with on the system. So this is an example from the Xerox group. This is a very old, a very one of the original sort of point and click interfaces. Up until that, there were different, you were probably typing in code into the screen. And the UI, or the user interfaces, is everything that a person touches, sees, or interprets when using a system, and includes physical actions, visual displays, sounds, the layout of the system. Does it make sense? All those things. And users provide input to a system, and the system gives them output, such as showing a message or playing a sound. And interfaces must make it easy to understand what's happening, what actions are possible, and how to reach a goal. And they can kind of you can guide the user as to, how best to proceed. And this could include clear messages, feedback, navigation, things like those alerts, those, clicks in Pinterest, the little vibrations that your phone gives you when something is correct or incorrect, all those type of things. And UX design doesn't stop at the interface. It must consider how people use devices together and how those devices connect and ultimately fit into daily routines. And many systems now allow people to interact with other people through technology. And the technology has to support those human to human interactions as well. So this guy is Don Norman. So he's like the godfather of UX. So he's one of the very famous guy, wrote loads of books, essentially invented the whole discipline of HCI, UX, and UX has actually evolved from a field called human computer interaction, right? So that was what it was known as, first of all. And it started out in the 1980s, and HCI focused on how people use computers and how to design those systems better. But you see, the computer has how we use computers have changed. We've got mobiles, we've got wearables, we've all those things. So the field has changed. The design field has changed as well. So yeah, so in '93, Don Norman introduced the term user experience while working at Apple. But today, UX design covers everything from mobile apps, smart homes, public transport kind of devices. It's used in education, healthcare, entertainment, retail, all those examples that we looked at. UX is not just about digital screens. It includes, how people live, interact in this connected digital world that we all live in. So yeah, super important guy. Takeaway point that the field has developed over time. Yeah, and part of it is we all live in this digital world. So if you think of like a typical person's day, right? So a person might start the day and they've got their digital alarm, they check messages on their phone, they download news to their tablet, they catch up on what's happening. On the way to work, they use the parking machines, they scan tickets, they get money from the ATM, they listen to music on Spotify, all these things. At work, they browse the web, they use software, they're on a Zoom call like this, they work with others in different locations, um, they're taking photos, they're uploading them, they're playing games. The devices recognize their faces. You've got logging in kind of things. You're getting tagged in locations, and sync is automatically happening across all the devices and all the services. And all of this is UX in action, and designers need to understand how people switch between tasks, devices, over the course of the day, and how each interface supports the human activity. So if you think of, you know, like we're getting to the point now where like it's very hard to live without digital. And I know there was a big outage on AWS yesterday, and it knocked out just a ton of services and apps. And so very disruptive. So it caused a lot of problems globally. And that's just one big platform that a lot of companies rely on. Right, so a little bit of a history lesson. This is where we are today. So, but how did we get here? So we looked at this a little bit in the last course. You have, sorry, just you start off you very old computing machines. This is I think a Xerox machine, very rudimentary mouse, keyboard, this type of stuff. I'll let you go through this text yourself. It's just a sort of a run through on the rise and the evolution of personal computing and how that turned into I suppose, well, it was business computing and then it was personal computing. And now we have ubiquitous computing, which means just computing everywhere. So even in our personal lives, in work, in school, we're all using devices all the time. And all these depend on interfaces. So this is the graphical user interface. And then in parallel with this development, you've got HCI, human computer interaction. So, and we've gone on this journey from devices going online, which is the web. Then devices are mobile, the devices are shrinking. Now we're carrying the internet in our pocket. And now we're at this point where we have ubiquitous computing, right? So ubiquitous just means everywhere, omnipresent, or always there computing. So we have gone through this journey, I suppose, as a planet. And today you have, just a typical home, you have tons and tons of these devices. Maybe not a robot, but not yet, but probably, you know, just around the corner. Um, UX design, you see it everywhere. Mobile devices, they've more power today than the spaceship that went to the moon. They're connected to cloud. You have huge amounts of data. It's synced, it's stored, all that stuff. And yeah, devices are integrated into everyday life. Wearables, smart appliances, navigation systems, public information screens, all these type of things. You have IoT, you have, these type of things in entertainment and in sport. So there's been a whole progression or a proliferation of digital into our lives. And in parallel with that, the human computer interaction and the user experience has had to develop and change. Um, Today we all lead digital lives. There are just, things like VR and these sort of headsets. They're coming, yeah, they're being more and more present. And like any good product is not just about the technology. It needs strong UX and it needs a working business model. So Don Norman, remember the Godfather, he described this as a simple model, and that successful products need three things. They need good technology, they need good marketing, and they need good user experience. So to have a product, if you're missing one of those things, it just weakens the whole product. So the user experience and that use of the product or the website or the service or the app is so important. The technology is super important, and being able to sell the product through marketing is super important as well. So look, we sort of gained pace there as we went on. It's coming up to 10 o'clock now. So delighted to be back with you all again. Let me just stop sharing. I will ping the slides across to the college, and yeah, we'll go through them, come back the next day if you have any questions. Any questions or comments now before we go? No, all good. Thumbs up. Yeah, thanks guys. And look, this is a really fun course as well. So just focus on getting your assignment finished if you've got one due in, and I look forward to working with you over the duration of this course. Okay,
Um,
take
I
care,
have a
and
question.
we'll
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Bye bye.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, you have a question
I have a question. So this lesson for me supposed to start at 2 p.m., right?
today? No,
Yeah,
no.
because
This
yesterday I received a message that like for me Almaty time it's like received at 2 p.m. Almaty lesson first.
Okay. The best thing to do is because I deliver the lessons and the lectures, right? And I'm told by the college what time to attend, you know? So that you should maybe discuss that with, is it Anthony in the college, or who is the person you deal with
Um,
in the college?
So I don't know, like in a level three, like in a group. So yesterday
Hmm.
they sent a message that, and for me, lesson first, 21st of October, and like for me, it's
Hmm.
like since the time changed in UK, and for me it's 2 p.m. Almaty. So when I thought that I was waiting for the time, and I thought that you started now.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. So you've just come online, have you? Have you just
Yeah,
joined the class, or were you here earlier? Have you been here for
yeah,
the
I
whole
just
lesson?
joined it because I thought that it's 2 p.m. and the message is like 2 p.m.
Okay, look, I'll share the note. What you do is flag it with the college, because the classes are there. So I'm in Ireland, or so I'm UK time. So it's 10 a.m. now. So all my
Yeah,
classes start here at 9 a.m. So this is so whatever, I don't know what country you're in. So I think they've just told you the wrong time by 1 hour. So you've sort of joined right at the end as opposed to the start.
yeah. So I don't
Yeah,
know who is it. It says just a graduate college. Yeah.
yeah. So just it was a mistake by the college. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm so sorry
yeah,
for that I missed the lesson.
yeah. It's no problem at all. Look, it was sort of an introductory lesson anyway, and you'll be able to pick up most of it via the slides, and I'll share them with the college, and then you can, any questions you have the next day, we can you look at them, at the start of class. So, but it sounds like the college might have made a mistake, but I don't know because I haven't seen
Yeah,
the
so you see, like
email.
from third lesson, for me it's like third 3 p.m. Almaty, like I'm in Kazakhstan, so this is
Yeah.
what
Well,
they
look,
shared.
yeah, well, look, I know that attendance is a thing, so I'll put you down as having full attendance anyway if needs be.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for
Yeah.
that I wasn't
Well, it's
participating.
no. So it's okay. It just happens sometimes. A small mistake, but look, at least we know for the rest of the course now what the correct time is. So what I'll do is I'll see you at the correct time on. So the classes for me happen the same time on Tuesdays and Thursdays for 8 weeks. So it'll be the same for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, nice to chat to you. I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
What I would do is I'd flag it with the college. I'd say, look,
Mm-hmm.
this there might have been an error with the communication, and just talk to them about it, and they'll be fine. And because it's the
Yeah.
start of the course, you'll have no problem catching up on the materials. And again, this was an introductory lesson, so nothing too complicated or scary.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, have a great day. I'll talk to you all soon,
Thank
guys.
you.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye bye.